I want to open today with a truth that has been quietly holding back generations of believers. And the truth is this: the greatest gap in the church is not a gap of doctrine, it is a gap of mentality. Most believers have been born again in their spirit, but they still think from the mindset they had before they met Christ. They have been forgiven, but they still walk like they are in debt. They have been adopted, but they still act like they are orphans. They have been crowned, but they still bow like they are beggars. Everybody say king. Now say, I am a king. Now say, I refuse to think like a beggar. Write this down before we go any further. Salvation changes your spirit instantly, but your mindset takes discipleship. And until your mindset is renewed, your spiritual position and your mental posture will not agree, and the disagreement will keep you living below what heaven has already made available to you. That statement alone should shake somebody today. The church is full of kings who are still thinking like beggars, rich in position, poor in mentality, seated with Christ in heavenly places, but bowing at every threat of the enemy, given dominion over the earth, but paralyzed by every headline that hits the news, given access to the throne of grace, but praying like they have to convince a reluctant God to notice them. This is the crisis. And it is a crisis of the mind, not the spirit. I want to walk you through what it actually means to think like a king. And by the time we are finished today, I do not want any beggar mindset to survive in your inner world. I want a crown to sit not just on your head, but inside your thinking. Because how you think determines how you carry yourself. How you carry yourself determines what you attract. And what you attract determines the life you actually experience, no matter what heaven has technically made available to you. Let me clarify something before we go further. When I say king, I am not talking about arrogance. Write that down. A king is not arrogant. Arrogance is a beggar wearing a crown badly. Kings are not loud. Kings are not boastful. Kings are not desperate for attention. Kings are secure. Kings know who they are. Kings do not need to prove themselves in every room they walk into, because their identity is not up for a vote. That is the mental posture we're going after today. Secure, grounded, anchored, purposeful, governing, not proving, not chasing, not begging, not performing, just carrying. Let me set a foundation for you. Write this down. A beggar mindset says, if only somebody would give me what I need. A king mindset says, what has been given to me is more than enough, and I will steward it into what I need. Look at that carefully. The beggar mindset externalizes provision. The king mindset internalizes stewardship. The beggar is always looking outside for the answer. The king is always looking inside for the resource. The beggar sees limitation. The king sees potential. The beggar sees a small hand of what he does not have. The king sees a full hand of what he does have and starts working from there. This is not about being rich. This is about being royal. Being royal is a mentality that governs every part of your life, no matter what your bank account says. There are millionaires with beggar mindsets who spend their entire lives feeling poor. And there are people with modest resources who carry themselves like royalty because they know what they possess is a seed for something greater. The kingdom of God does not care about your income. It cares about your identity. Let me read you a verse that will change how you see yourself. Revelation chapter 1 verse 6 says, He has made us to be a kingdom and priests to serve His God and Father. Write those words down. He has made us to be a kingdom and priests, not slaves, not servants, not beggars, a kingdom, priests. That is your identity. Look at another one. 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 9. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. Underline the word royal, royal priesthood. You were not saved into common status. You were saved into royal status. The moment you accepted Christ, you inherited a bloodline, a spiritual bloodline. And that bloodline carries authority, access, and identity that the world outside of Christ does not possess. Now here's the tragedy. Most believers know these verses intellectually, but they do not think from them. They quote royal identity while walking in beggar posture, and the disconnect keeps them stuck. Today, we are going to shut that disconnect down. I am going to walk you through 6 mental shifts. 6 shifts that take you from beggar to king. And when you apply these shifts to your daily thinking, you will be surprised how quickly your life starts to reorganize around your renewed mind. Let me give you one more foundation before we get into the shifts. Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Notice what Paul is saying. Transformation happens in the mind, not in the emotions, not in the circumstances, not in the environment, in the mind. And until the mind is renewed, the life stays conformed to the old pattern, even if the person is genuinely born again. So the question is not whether you are saved. The question is whether your mind has been renewed to match your salvation. And that is the work we're about to walk into. Shift number 1. From asking to decreeing. Write this down. Beggars ask, kings decree. Now, hear me carefully. I am not saying you should stop praying. Prayer is essential. Prayer is honoring. Prayer is intimacy with the Father. What I am talking about is the posture from which you engage the world around you. A beggar posture assumes lack. It approaches every situation from the position of, please give me, please help me, please bless me, please notice me. There is a place for that posture with God. It is called humility. But when that same posture is carried into your marriage, into your business, into your ministry, into your parenting, into your leadership, it produces weakness where authority was meant to sit. A king posture assumes stewardship of what has already been given. It approaches every situation from the position of what has been given to me by heaven and how do I release it in this room. A king does not walk into a room hoping to be noticed. A king walks into a room aware of what he carries. Look at Job. In the middle of his suffering, at his lowest point, he made a declaration. He said, I know that my Redeemer lives. That is a king statement in the middle of a beggar situation. Job was covered in sores. His family was gone. His wealth was destroyed. His friends were accusing him. And in that condition, he decreed a truth heaven had planted in him. He did not beg, he decreed. And that decree kept him anchored until his breakthrough came. Look at David. Before he fought Goliath, he said, this day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I will strike you down. That is not a request, that is a decree. He was speaking from the position heaven had already given him, even though the giant in front of him made the decree look ridiculous. But kings speak from the throne, not from the trenches. The difference between a beggar and a king is often the difference between a prayer and a decree. The beggar says, God, please make this happen. The king says, Father, I thank you that this has already been given, and I now release it in this situation. Same faith, different posture, different results. Start practicing decree language in your inner world. When you wake up, do not just ask for a good day. Decree over your day. When you enter your workplace, do not just hope for a good meeting. Decree that peace enters with you. When you sit with your children, do not just wish they would grow into godly people. Decree destiny over their lives. When you pray for your finances, do not just ask for provision. Decree that whatever your hands touch prospers. because you are a child of the king. And that is what the king's children do. The moment you start decreeing, you shift from beggar to king in your own mind. And when your mind shifts, the atmosphere around you starts to shift with it. Shift number 2, from scarcity to abundance. Write this down. Beggars think in scarcity. Kings think in abundance. Scarcity thinking is the assumption that there is not enough time, not enough money, not enough opportunity, not enough favor, not enough love, not enough grace, not enough anything. And because scarcity thinking assumes lack, it produces a life that constantly feels behind, constantly feels tight, constantly feels one crisis away from collapse. Abundance thinking is the assumption that there is more than enough, not because you have already seen it, but because you know the God you serve is the source of all supply, and he is not running low on anything. Abundance thinking does not deny the current appearance. Abundance thinking says the current appearance is not the final report. There is a kingdom behind the visible realm, and that kingdom operates on abundance, not scarcity. Look at what Jesus did with 5 loaves and 2 fish. From a beggar perspective, that food was scarcity. Not enough for 5,000 people. But Jesus took the small offering and released abundance out of it. 12 baskets of leftovers. He did not create abundance from abundance. He created abundance from what looked like scarcity. Because the source is not the visible supply. The source is the king who governs the invisible supply behind the visible one. When you shift to abundance thinking, you stop hoarding what you have. Beggars hoard. They cannot give because they are afraid there will not be enough left. They cannot serve because they are afraid of being used up. They cannot love freely because they are afraid of being emptied. Hoarding is a beggar's defense mechanism against a scarcity fear. But kings are generous. Kings give because they know the source is not the storeroom. The source is the king they serve, and the storeroom will be refilled. Kings serve because they know service does not deplete them, it positions them for more. Kings love freely because they know love multiplies as it is spent, not the opposite. Look at your inner world honestly. Do you make decisions from scarcity or from abundance? When someone succeeds around you, do you celebrate or feel threatened? A scarcity mind feels threatened by others' success because it assumes success is a limited pie. An abundance mind celebrates because it knows the king's supply is not depleted by anyone else's blessing. When you are asked to give, do you tighten up or do you release with joy? A scarcity mind tightens. An abundance mind releases because it knows the release is a seed and the seed will produce a harvest. When you look at your future, do you assume decline or assume increase? A scarcity mind assumes it is downhill from here. An abundance mind assumes the best is still ahead because heaven does not run out and the promises have not expired. Start choosing abundance in your inner language. Even when your bank account looks empty, even when the calendar looks tight, even when the season looks lean, decide that you are going to think from abundance because that is what a king does. And watch how the atmosphere around you starts to attract what your inner world has been decreeing. Shift number 3. From approval seeking to assignment driven. Write this down. Beggars need approval. Kings carry assignment. A beggar mind is anchored in the opinions of other people. It needs the affirmation. It needs the applause. It needs the validation. It needs someone else to confirm its worth before it can move. And because it needs external confirmation, it is always vulnerable to external rejection. When approval comes, the beggar feels lifted. When approval is withheld, the beggar collapses. A king mind is anchored in assignment. Kings know why they are here. Kings know what they were sent to do. And because they know, they do not need every voice in the room to co-sign their identity. They will do the work, whether it is applauded or not, because the work was decreed before the applause was invented. Look at Jesus. He did not chase approval. He knew who he was. He did not need the crowd to validate his identity. He did not adjust his message to match popular opinion. He walked in assignment. And when the crowds cheered, he did not change. When the crowds turned on him, he did not change. His identity did not fluctuate with public sentiment. That is king mentality. Identity that does not require external co-signers. How much of your energy right now is spent seeking approval that will never truly satisfy you? How many decisions are you making based on what someone else will think? How often do you hesitate to move because you are not sure how you will be received? Every time you defer your assignment to another person's opinion, you are operating from beggar mentality. Now hear me. I am not saying to ignore wise counsel. Wise counsel is a treasure. What I am saying is that counsel and approval are not the same thing. Wise counsel refines your assignment. Approval seeking dilutes it. Wise counsel helps you sharpen the arrow. Approval seeking bends the arrow to please the crowd until it can no longer hit any target. Kings receive counsel. Kings resist approval seeking. There is a difference. Ask yourself, whose opinion has been running my life? Whose voice do I imagine when I am about to make a decision? Whose approval am I trying to earn without even realizing it? These are the beggar voices in your head. Identify them and then dismiss them from the throne room of your mind. You are not on this earth to make everybody like you. You are here to fulfill an assignment. An assignment always creates enemies. If you never disappoint anyone, you are probably not walking in assignment. Because assignment requires you to speak truth that some people will hate, take positions that some people will oppose, and make choices that some people will misunderstand. Kings can handle that. Beggars cannot. Which are you, and which are you willing to become? Shift number 4. From fear-based to faith-based decisions. Write this down. Beggars decide from fear. Kings decide from faith. A beggar mind is dominated by threat assessment. It sees every situation through the lens of what could go wrong. It calculates every risk before it feels safe enough to move. And because life is full of risks, the beggar rarely feels safe enough to move at all. Fear becomes the default operating system, and the beggar makes small decisions that keep him small. A king mind is dominated by promise assessment. It sees every situation through the lens of what heaven has said. It weighs risk honestly, but it does not treat risk as the final word. Because the king knows there's a promise attached to his life that is bigger than the risk in front of him. And the promise governs the decision, not the fear. Look at David again. When Goliath stood in front of Israel, everyone else saw a threat. David saw an opportunity to demonstrate the God he served. Same giant, different lens. The army had beggar eyes. David had king eyes. And king eyes see everything through the lens of what heaven can do, not what the flesh has to fear. Fear will not disappear from your life. That is not the promise. The promise is that fear does not have to decide your life. You can feel afraid and still make king decisions, because king decisions are not made from feelings. King decisions are made from the promise God has spoken and the faith to align with what he has said. Let me be practical. What decisions have you been avoiding because you were waiting for the fear to go away? The business you have not started, the conversation you have not had, the move you have not made, the ministry you have not launched, the relationship you have not stepped into, The dream you've not pursued. If you are waiting for the fear to leave before you move, you may wait forever, because fear does not leave first. Movement leaves first, and in the movement, the fear shrinks. Kings move even when afraid. They move because they know their assignment is bigger than their fear. They know their God is bigger than their circumstances. They know their identity in Christ is bigger than any threat the enemy can raise up in the room. So they move, and in the moving, the promise takes shape. I want to challenge you today. Identify one fear-based decision you have been making repeatedly, and this week, make a faith-based decision in that same area. See what happens. Then do it again next week and the week after, because king mentality is built through repeated faith decisions that override the beggar reflex of fear. Shift number 5, from complaining to governing. Write this down. Beggars complain, kings govern. A beggar mind talks about problems as if he is a victim of them. He describes his life as something that is happening to him. He explains why things are hard, why they are not fair, why he is stuck, and the more he talks that way, the more he entrenches himself into the very reality he is complaining about. Because words are seeds, and beggar words plant beggar harvests. A king mind talks about problems as if he is a governor of them. He describes his life as something he is shaping. He identifies the challenge, but he immediately shifts into what he can do about it. He does not deny the problem. He engages the problem, because kings govern. That is what kings do. Look at Nehemiah. When he heard about the state of Jerusalem, he wept, he mourned, he grieved, he felt the weight, but he did not stay in the grief. He moved from grieving into governing. He fasted, he prayed, he planned, he requested materials from the king. He organized the rebuild. He led the effort. He responded to opposition. He completed the wall in 52 days. That is king mentality. Feel the weight, but do not stay in the mourning. Move from mourning into governance. Most believers today would have wept about Jerusalem and posted about it on social media. Nehemiah wept and then went and rebuilt it. That is the difference. When you find yourself complaining, ask yourself this question: what can I actually govern in this situation? What piece of this is within my authority? Because there is always a piece, even if it is small, even if it is just how you respond internally, there is always something a king can do that a beggar cannot see. Complaining is a beggar reflex. Governing is a king reflex. Train yourself to notice the reflex and then to redirect it. Every time complaint starts to rise in your throat, catch it and ask, what can I do about this instead? The redirected energy becomes the fuel for governance. Some of you have wasted years in complaining, seasons that could have been governance seasons. You could have been building, you could have been shaping, you could have been leading. Instead, you were narrating the problem to anyone who would listen. Stop that. Reclaim the years you have left. Start governing what is in your hand today. Shift number 6, from waiting passively to ruling actively. Write this down. Beggars wait, kings rule. There is a difference between spiritual waiting and passive waiting. Spiritual waiting is active. It involves posture, preparation, alignment, and readiness. It is a form of engagement with God while a season unfolds. Passive waiting is sitting on a couch hoping something changes without your involvement. Beggars specialize in passive waiting. They wait for a job to fall in their lap. They wait for a spouse to appear at their door. They wait for a ministry opportunity to be handed to them. They wait for God to move in their finances while they refuse to move in stewardship. They wait for the wind of favor to blow, but they never raise a sail. Kings rule while they wait. Kings prepare in the waiting. Kings sharpen in the waiting. Kings position themselves in the waiting. Kings do the invisible work in the waiting that will be evident when the visible moment arrives. Look at Esther. She did not become queen by accident. When the opportunity came, she was already prepared. Her posture, her wisdom, her carriage, her disciplines, all of it had been shaped in years of quiet preparation before the throne came into view. When she finally stood before the king, she was not scrambling. She was ready. Because kings rule while they wait. Look at Joseph. His years in the pit, in Potiphar's house, in prison, every one of those seasons could have been passive waiting. Every one of those seasons became active governance in whatever tiny sphere he had access to. Even in prison, he interpreted dreams. Even as a slave, he stewarded excellently. When the moment came for him to be lifted to Pharaoh's palace, he was not caught off guard. He had been ruling in every room he had been placed in, no matter how humble the room. That is king thinking. Ruling in the small room, preparing in the quiet season, governing what is in your hand today so that when tomorrow's larger portion arrives, you are not shocked by it. I want you to look at your life right now. Where are you passively waiting? Where are you sitting on your hands, hoping something will happen? Move that area from passive to active this week. Do what you can do. Prepare in the space you are in. Take initiative where initiative is possible. Because kings do not sit and wait. Kings sharpen and rule while the timing unfolds. Now, let me walk you into practical application. Because knowing these 6 shifts is one thing. Living from them is another. Step 1. Rewrite your inner monologue. Pay attention to the sentences you say to yourself in your own head throughout the day. Are they beggar sentences? I never have enough. I always miss out. Nothing ever works for me. Nobody sees me. I can't do this. Those are beggar sentences. Rewrite them. Replace them with king sentences. I have more than I realize. I am seen by heaven. I can do this because Christ strengthens me. Something is always working on my behalf, even when I cannot see it. Step 2, adjust your body language. This sounds strange in a spiritual teaching, but hear me. Kings carry themselves differently than beggars. Their shoulders are back. Their eyes are level. Their pace is purposeful. Their voice is grounded. When you carry yourself like a king in your body, it feeds into your mind and reinforces the mental shift. Body and mind are connected. Adjust both. Step 3, speak differently in public. Beggars talk about themselves in defeated language, even in casual conversation. Oh, you know me, I never win. Story of my life. That is just my luck. Every one of those sentences reinforces beggar mentality. Kings talk about themselves in identity-secure language. That is not my story. God has been faithful. I am walking into what He has promised. Watch your public speech. It shapes your private mind more than you know. Step 4, serve like a king. Kings serve, but they serve from strength, not from insecurity. They serve because they have something to give, not because they are trying to earn love. Adjust the posture of your service. Serve because you are royalty releasing something into the room, not because you are begging for approval. Same act, different heart, different result. Step 5, steward like a king. Kings steward everything under their care with excellence. Their environments are ordered. Their commitments are honored. Their words are kept. Their responsibilities are handled with dignity. Look at what is under your care right now and ask, am I stewarding this like royalty? Or am I stewarding it like someone who does not really care? The stewardship posture reveals the mentality behind it. Step 6, surround yourself with kings. Beggar mentality is contagious. So is king mentality. If everyone around you is complaining, comparing, fearing, and hoarding, your mind will drift toward that same posture. If everyone around you is decreeing, believing, giving, and governing, your mind will rise to match. Choose your circle carefully. Iron sharpens iron. Beggars sharpen beggars into deeper begging. Kings sharpen kings into fuller royalty. I want to bring this teaching home with a charge. You are not a beggar. You never were. Even before you knew Christ, you were made in the image of God with royal potential woven into your design. When you accepted Christ, you were formally adopted into the family of the King of Kings, which means your identity is not up for renegotiation. It is settled in heaven. The only thing that has not caught up yet is your mind. And today, we start closing that gap. You will not think like a beggar again. You will not carry yourself like an orphan again. You will not shrink yourself to fit a room that heaven built you to fill. You will walk into every space aware of what you carry, aware of who you serve, aware of the assignment that put you there. You will decree instead of beg. You will trust abundance instead of scarcity. You will follow assignment instead of chasing approval. You will decide from faith instead of fear. You will govern instead of complain. You will rule instead of wait. That is the king life. That is the life you were born again into. That is the life the world around you is waiting to see, modeled by believers who finally understand the crown that has been on their heads all along. Declare with me, I am a kingdom citizen. I am a royal priest. I have been given authority in Christ. My mind is renewed. I refuse beggar thinking. I choose king thinking. And I will walk out of this teaching a different person than the one who came in. That declaration is not empty words. That declaration is agreement with heaven's report over your life. And when you agree with heaven, the atmosphere over you shifts. Do not leave this teaching the same. Take the shifts, apply them, rewrite your inner monologue, adjust your public speech, choose your circle, steward with excellence, and watch how quickly the life around you begins to reflect the king already inside you. If this teaching stirred something in your spirit today, do me a favor, share it with somebody who has been living beneath their royal identity. Subscribe to the channel for more teachings that will rebuild your inner world from a kingdom foundation. And drop the word crowned in the comments as a declaration that you are stepping into the mentality of the king you were always meant to be. We will see you in the next teaching.